Hello everyone, welcome to the Now What podcast. My name is Glenn Sharp. I am the president and CEO of Sharp Leadership Development. This is episode 16. If you have not visited us and the podcast yet, it's really loosely based on the new book that I put out called Now What. It is really the coaching journey of Johnny. Johnny is a fantastic mechanic in the airline industry, and because he's so good at being a mechanic, they made him manager of mechanics. Now what? Johnny doesn't know how to be a manager. He knows how to be a mechanic. So it's my job over a 4-month period to really give him the skills necessary to get on a level playing field with his peers. So we go over a ton of different skills and abilities on being a manager, and it's just chock full of cool ideas from someone who has been a manager director for well over 23 years. So check it out. It's a great way to get the year kicked off right and get your people for 2026 hitting the ground running. But also if you have an aspiring manager, if you have somebody that is a high potential and you want to groom them to be a manager, it's a great way to go ahead and test them a little bit and get them used to the concepts while helping you out. So we're going to continue how we started the year off. We made a bit of a pivot from 2025 to 2026. In last week's episode, I went over a real-world scenario. I asked several of my clients if I can use them in the podcast, and a lot of them, I'm talking dozens of them, have gotten back to me in regards to, yeah, absolutely, I would love to share. So last week, we talked about a specific scenario, and we're going to follow suit from this point forward. So today's scenario is going to be on change, and this is a huge area, so huge that I continue to teach change management at the graduate level at the University of Cincinnati. Mostly Gen Zs in that class, but it's incredible how quickly the class fills up because of the topic, the subject matter, not because of me. People are struggling with this. And no one's struggling it more than Bill. This is Bill in Dayton, and Bill's just a fantastic guy. He's really getting his legs under him in regards to being a manager, but he's struggling with something that we're all struggling with, and that is change. I've got a team who consistently resists change. Every time a change is introduced, they find ways to nitpick any new ideas, and it's really holding us back as a group. Do you have any ideas on how to motivate them? How do I get them to embrace change? So how we're going to go about it, just like we did last week, Bill, I'm going to treat you just like I would in the coaching room. All right, so brace yourself because you know kind of how that works. But for those of you watching on the podcast, we're going to mix in some of the concepts that we have before with some new concepts. This, at the very least, is going to help you understand how to use the concepts, but also we'll learn some advanced concepts as well today. So let's go ahead and get to it. Bill, one of the things that you know about me is my desire to hold you accountable. And you're not alone, it's all my coaching clients. But for so many clients, the biggest aha moment, just like it was for you, I have to get you to change the way you think about leading your team, the way you think about change. Right? So your thinking drives your behavior drives your results. And if you'll notice on the screen, the results cone appears. I told you guys when we first met that this is my favorite concept of all my concepts. It's because I think people go after results, and it's the exact wrong way to accomplish your goals. I've got to change the way you think, Bill, and then once I change the way you think, your behavior will change. Results come later. It's the same way for your team. You got to change the way they think about change in general. Right? So to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you an image, and this is really the basis of one of my change management workshops that I teach. I'm actually teaching this tomorrow to a client because they're struggling with the same thing you are, Bill. But if you'll notice on the screen, a weird image shows up. It's loosely a wheelbarrow, I guess. The point of this is not to make fun of the image or anything like that. Basically what I asked the group and what I'll ask them tomorrow is I want you to critique this image. This is my new idea, my new design for a wheelbarrow. Right? And of course, Gen Zs, I love to make fun of them. Like a wheelbarrow is something you put dirt in, you use to haul stuff around, do gardening, and they're like, shut up, Glenn. But this is my new idea for a wheelbarrow, I say. I want you to critique my idea. So I give them a few minutes and they write down anything that comes to mind, the good, the bad, the ugly. Right? No one's going to see it, I tell them. Right? So you don't have to worry about what you write down. Feel free to write down whatever you want. So after a few minutes, I get the group back together and I say to them, okay, how many of you had mostly positive comments? Look at your comments and I want you to put a plus sign next to the positive ones, right? If you would, a negative sign next to the negative comments and a 0 next to the neutral comments. How many of you, by show of hands, had more positive comments than anything else? And how many people out of a group of 20 do you think raised their hands? Almost no one. Very, very few, if any. And then I'll ask them, how many of you had mostly negative comments? And of course, how many people do you think raised their hand? Most of the group. In fact, the record is 20 for 20. Right? But it's not uncommon to have 16 to 18 people. And then I'll ask the group, how many of you guys had more neutral comments than anything else? And maybe I'll get a couple of people that raise their hands. The point of the exercise is, what I'm about to ask you, I ask them. What does this say about our group, that we had mostly negative comments? And I get some chuckles and I get some laughter, but basically they say we're negative, right? And we think negatively. We got to change our thoughts. So like, yes. And we talk a little bit about this particular image, right? And I say, you haven't even asked any questions yet, but yet the entire time you're writing down negative comments. I say to them, in an honest moment, when you are hit with a brand new idea or someone comes to you with a new process or a new way of doing things, what is your original response? What is your immediate response to that? And typically the class tells me it's negative. We typically roll our eyes. We typically make excuses like we've always done it this way, or that's not going to work, similar to what Bill is struggling with right now. So I'll ask them, listen, give me some idea of what your thoughts are on the following, right? If you don't change as an organization, right, what's going to happen? If you don't do anything different between now and, say, 5 years from now, what is life going to be like where you work? And typically, people will say, we'll get surpassed, or we'll be out of business if we don't change. All I have to do is say 2 letters, AI, and I think everybody perks up and knows you better get on the ball. You better start to change the way you do things, because things are going to change awfully rapidly in the next few years. But then I'll ask them, okay, but when something is brought up, a change is brought up, what's the initial response? And it is negative, and just like what they said earlier. And I said, there's a dichotomy right there. There it is. This is why my class gets filled up so quick. This is why it's such an issue out in the real world. And that is, you've got to change, right? Yet it's always hit with resistance. That doesn't make any sense when you think about it, right? And I tell them, I go, listen, you've got to embrace this, guys. It's incredible to me. I ask them the question, like, why is it that we don't change our behavior unless it's perfect, the change, unless everybody agrees? When was the last time anyone agreed on anything, right? I mean, everyone's got an issue. I say to them, why do you have to either eat the whole apple or nothing at all? Why can't you just take a bite? Why can't you just try something? If it works, great, continue on. If not, we won't do that anymore. But it's incredible to me how many people resist change, and a form of resistance is, we're not going to do it because it's not perfect, or I don't like it, we've always done it this way, and every other excuse out there. So I'll explain to them this image again. I go, this is an actual image. It's called the daisy wheelbarrow, right? And it used to be used in high-rise construction. It's about the size of me. I'm a little over 6 feet tall, and it's pretty heavy, obviously. This is a very simple image, but it's used to carry wet cement. At least it was back in the day. I'm talking about a long time ago. And if you notice, there's a wheel on the bottom, a single wheel, and then you've got a handle. That wheel and the handle actually gets locked into a pulley system, and it gets hoisted to its designated floor. Once it gets to the designated floor, that wheel gets locked into a track, and a motor pushes that thing to its destination. The reason why the compartment is higher than the wheel is because it has a little trap door on there, but before they hit the trap door, that compartment needs to go over curbing systems. Very often in high-rise construction, there's curbing systems. It's designed to go over the curb and be released. How do they release it? gravity. There's a little trap door on the bottom, and basically they pull it, and out comes the product. Now that we don't use this anymore because normally people pump wet cement, through lines and things like that. We've advanced in terms of technology. But back in the day, this served a purpose. And I asked them, now what do you think of the idea? Right? And they're like, actually, that's a pretty good idea. That's not bad. Again, it's a metaphor for what happens at work. So many individuals, they just nitpick and they destroy the idea without even thinking it through, without even allowing the person presenting the idea to finish. It's incredible how that works. So, Bill, one of the things I want you to think about is, how do you handle change with your team? Do you demand change? Do you demand an open mind? Do you set your team up for success? Or do you allow them to dictate terms? So let me tell you a little bit of a story here, and I think it will make a lot of sense what I just said. So I'll never forget, there was a client of mine, and one of their employees, I'll never forget her name, it was Jessica. Jessica was asked by her boss to present a new idea, and this was her boss's idea. This is at her boss's behest. So she puts together this PowerPoint presentation. She does a ton of work, pours her heart and soul into it, and then the team asked me to sit in the back of the room and critique, the way these guys view change. Right? I'm there to help them with change. Just keep that in mind as I progress through the story. So Jessica presents, and she does her PowerPoint slide, and the moment she starts to present and goes over a few of the ideas, they start to nitpick her. They start to actually just pull the ideas apart. They start to get into all sorts of bunny trails. I mean, they completely took over the presentation. They disparaged her ideas. They actually told her, we've tried that already. That's stupid. That's dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm telling you. And it got so bad that Jessica ran out of the room crying. Interesting. Now, the entire time I am glaring at who? Who am I irritated at? I'm glaring at the manager, because the manager did not control the room. They did not dictate terms. He let the actual inmates run the asylum, basically, all right? And you cannot do that. Think about this for a second. Let's go back to our graph where you've seen this several times if you followed the podcast. The green line is proactive, the red line is reactive. And the basic concept behind this is if you put the work in up front, it's smooth sailing along the way. You see the amount of effort in the green line up front, and then if you put the effort in up front, it obviously takes a lot less effort later on, versus not putting any effort in, and then the amount of effort it takes to get to the same level of implementation. Right? So it's pay me now or pay me later. How does this work in regards to change and what I'm talking about? Well, imagine if the manager literally, before Jessica began, said to his group, listen, I asked Jessica to put this presentation together. We are going to show her respect. Right? That means there are no questions. There is no talking. All I want from you guys is I want you to take notes. And then when she's done, we're going to go around the room, and each of you are going to tell me why this will work. Right? And there are no negative comments, but you will allow Jessica to finish. I will slap your hand verbally if you try to interrupt her. Are we all agreed with that? Are we all going to show her respect? Yes or no? And as soon as everybody agrees, he says, go ahead, Jessica, you're on. That's all he had to do, right? How long would that have taken for him to actually gain control of his group and be the alpha and actually let them know what the terms are? All right, and the conditions are of that particular presentation. He also is showing Jessica respect, right? Because she worked hard and put this thing together, and that's the least he could do, is show her the respect that she's afforded. And of course, it would have gone great. But instead, what he did is he did nothing, put little effort into going over ground rules, and then follow that red line. It became a train wreck. Oh yeah, by the way, guess who left 2 weeks later? Yeah, Jessica. Would you stay? Honestly, would you stay in a company or group that's the way they handle things when you put your work, put so much work and so much effort into it? right? So that's what we're talking about in regards to change. And that's something that you have to do, Bill. You have to change the way you think about it, and you have to change the way they think about it. So in that spirit, I want to kind of go over something that you can do with your group, right? And you'll notice on the screen, it's a very simple concept. You see the easel on there with the question, what if? This is something that my boss did for us at Speedway, back in the day when I used to oversee the region trainers at Speedway. He basically told me one day, listen, I'm sick and tired of being the only one who comes up with new ideas. I want you guys to start coming up with new ideas, getting proactive. So every single meeting, he told us, I want you guys to write the words, what if, on your whiteboard in your meeting room. And I want it filled up, every single meeting. So carve time out to actually fill that thing up. So of course we made fun of it because he was like, I don't care if it's the stupidest thing in the world. I want ideas. Throw ideas on there. And when I randomly audit to see whether or not you guys did it, I'm going to come in after the meetings and I want to read that thing. So we made fun of it. We were like, what if, right? And eventually though, the interesting part was after we started writing ideas down, we were like, you know what? That's not bad, man. That's pretty good. And it became a habit where everybody was required to bring an idea to the weekly meeting. And it wasn't negative, it was positive ideas. And we would go around the room and we would share the ideas with each other. But there were also rules in those ideas because I found that my team, a bunch of region trainers that love to talk, so one of the things that I would do is say, no interruptions. We're going to go around the room and we're going to go over ideas. All I'm going to say is thank you next, and then the next person goes to save time, but also to make sure they're able to articulate their ideas without interruption. And what we noticed was that there was a ton of good ideas in that room. We also noticed that the original idea never looked like the finished product. If we had an open mind, we knew that, and we would discuss it, and we would take a snippet of the idea because of maybe there was some strategy that people didn't know about, or maybe after we talked about it as a group, we decided yes on this, but no on that. But we had nice, healthy debate. It was fun. It was actually energetic. We got ahead of our issues as well, because I remember one of the ideas was we need to put together a time management block, right, in preparation for what's definitely going to be asked in the future, because they are really struggling in the field with time management. So we put together a time management, 4-hour time management block, and when the executive team came to me and said, hey, just want to let you know that it's been requested. We need something on time management. They're really struggling out there. We were like, already got it, already rolled it out, already started it, or started testing it and revising it. When would you like us to present it to you? They were like, what? Like, yeah, we already have it. So getting ahead of our issues. But what happened was with the team, they started to embrace change. I even mandated that some of the individuals on my team would always come with a new idea, right? And if somebody had a new idea, I would ask them to present that new idea to folks, right? It was creating a culture where people actually understood we've got to do this. We've got to continuously improve, continuously evolve. And I put it in the context of what happens to companies that stifle innovation and creativity? What happens to companies that don't do this? Similar to what we saw earlier. And we have a little fun. I remember originally I presented, ever hear of a company called Kmart or Walmart? I mean, if any of you guys remember Kmart or remember the last time you walked into a Kmart, I don't know about you, I felt like it was walking back into the 70s. I'm 55 years old, and I remember the blue light special. I just remember going into one of the Kmarts, and there was a blue light above in the ceiling, but there was nothing underneath. There used to be like a bulk stack of sale items. But the register systems, the smocks, the inventory system, it looked like we were going back in time. That's what happens to companies that refuse to change, refuse to do things differently. They get gobbled up by the Walmarts and the Targets of the world that come in with just-in-time inventory systems and have a completely different model, right? It's incredible how they went down the tubes. And if you guys know anything about Kmart or even Sears, they used to be the Amazon and the Walmart of today. But they were so big, it took a minute, but they went down in flames to the point where they're pretty much gone. So that's how you have to kind of present it to your team. And I want you guys to understand that this is going to be a little bit tough. What you see over my shoulder, the last concept that we'll cover, is called the change curve. And I want you to understand this because it kind of dovetails with the proactive, reactive versus reactive graph. But anytime you go over change, right? Anytime you try to implement change, there's going to be peaks and valleys. And if you notice, there's kind of the valley of despair, right? It's not my model. I don't know if I would use that terminology. But basically, the way this works from 1 to 6 is typically people will listen. There might even be initial excitement, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the question I ask groups and classes all the time is it possible to change your behavior without going through some sort of discomfort? And the answer is no. So before you implement a change, one of the things I really encourage you guys to do is start to think about this. Get with your direct reports, your other supervisors, and talk about, hey, listen, we're going to implement this change. Let's make sure that we talk about what's inevitably going to happen. There's going to be resistance. But there's 2 different ways to really handle this. Here's the first way. And if you've seen one of my other podcasts in 2025, I kind of went over this concept as well. It was me in front of the golf simulator. But there's 2 different ways to look at change if you're a leader. So follow the change curve. If all of a sudden I'm in 4, resistance, and people start complaining, people start getting frustrated, mistakes start to happen, I might even lose a couple of people because they refuse to do this stuff. Right? The first way to look at it is, oh God, everyone is, people are quitting, people are making mistakes, right? Most people with that mindset, they quit when it gets hard, right? That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, oh God, people are quitting, oh God, there is an issue, people are making mistakes, right? They're not happy, good, they're halfway there. And if you ever notice that there's a lot of really great leaders out there that don't overreact when it gets hard because they planned it ahead of time. They got with their supervisors, they got with their team leads or their second in commands, they got with their boss, and they prepared for inevitably what was going to happen, and that is resistance. Right? But they knew that it had to happen. They knew that if resistance was occurring, that's just part of the process and that's a good thing. So remember that because it's the part of this, Bill. It's part of what you're about to encounter. If you're going to hold them accountable, if you're going to implement change, you're going to have to embrace the fact that resistance is necessary. And that is Peter Block's words, not mine. Peter Block is one of my favorite authors, and he talks about not only is it going to happen, it's a necessary part of change. So I hope that helps you, Bill. I hope that helps you guys that are tuning into the podcast. We will continue to go over scenarios like this. Once again, if you haven't picked up my book, Now What? A lot of the concepts that we cover are in this book as I'm helping Johnny over the 4-month period to get on a level playing field. Remember, this is available on paperback and ebook, soon to be on Audible. I'm just about finishing that up. It's a great way to get your employees off to a good start in 2026, or as I mentioned earlier, your high potential employees to groom them for the management level. In episode 17, we are going to tackle a coaching question from Steven. He's in Tampa, Florida. And this is an ugly one, but a necessary one. How do I avoid burnouts? And he's talking about his own burnouts, right? So he's talking a little bit about compartmentalizing while still allowing himself to care. And this is tough. Steven has a real hard situation with his boss, and he's really frustrated. And as you guys know, We don't want him to get to burnout. Once burnout occurs, it's almost too late at that point. We got to get him into a different situation. But there are ways to combat this, and there are ways to really think about this. And this is a real tough coaching session for many people, but I think it's necessary to cover. So that's what we will do in episode 17. So with that, guys, I hope this was a help. I hope these scenarios and some of the solutions help you guys in your own journey. I wish you the best of luck in your management and leadership journey. I hope to see you guys in episode 17, and I'll see you soon.